Hello there, welcome along to our latest look at the Weatherquest farming forecast and how things have changed from a very dry May to the downpours that we've seen so far in June. Just to recap how things were looking at the end of May, this is the hydrological outlook from the CEH, the Centre for Ecology and Hydrology, looking at the relative dryness at the very end of May, on the 31st of May. So this is looking at not just the surface layers, but actually below the surface, subsurface as well, and how much moisture is available compared to normal for the time of the year. And quite clearly across much of the UK here, the reds and browns indicating it's very dry, abnormally dry for the time of the year at the end of May. And of course, for many areas, May was the driest May on record as well. But things have changed quite remarkably in the last couple of weeks or so. We're now midway through the month, and we've had 2 weeks of some fairly good rain in some places, perhaps a bit too much rain in others as well. This is how much rain we've seen so far this month. So up until the middle of June, up to the 15th, using radar estimates, the key there on the right hand side there giving you an indication as to how much rain has fallen. So generally it's been pretty wet at times across the western side of the UK, especially over the hills, but even some useful rain getting into the southeast corner as well. It was very dry through May too. So many areas have had at least sort of 10-15 millimetres. Quite a number of places have seen over 20 millimetres, but really on those higher ground in the west, we've had a lot of rain, 60, 70, even getting close to sort of 100 plus over some of the mountains in western Scotland as well. A couple of rain events that have happened recently, one back last week, Zoe mentioned it in the video last week on the farming forecast. Now this happened on Wednesday evening through the early hours of Thursday, primarily across South Wales and Southwest England. Heavy, very heavy rain, almost thundery rain, but not much in the way of lightning, but that sort of intensity of the rainfall. Here we saw over 64 millimetres at the Mumbles, which is just outside Swansea. That is more than the month's average for June. So a very wet period during that Wednesday night into Thursday, wetter than a whole month basically, falling in less than 24 hours. So you can see the extent of the heavy rain also across the higher ground of Devon and Cornwall as well. So very wet here during that particular spell, but some rain elsewhere as you can see. And then more recently it's been heavy downpours, showers and thunderstorms that have been dominating the story really. Many places though are still stayed dry. You can see near the east coast and the south coast, these areas, because the winds are southeasterly, when you get an onshore breeze in the summer, generally speaking, especially if the winds higher up in the atmosphere are blowing in the same direction, it means the showers which develop because of the heating of the land don't really affect those areas. So you can see quite clearly the showers have been developing inland and the southeasterly winds then driving them towards the northwest. And they've been developing quite heavily over the mountains of northern England, parts of Wales, but also elsewhere because of what we call convergence zones. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a few moments. But quite clearly, this is just from Monday, but almost a repeat performance on Tuesday as well. Heavy showers and thunderstorms have been developing a good chunk of the Midlands, Wales, northwest England, parts of Northern Ireland as well, away from the east coast. North Sea coast actually at the moment plagued by a lot of fog. It's been day after day with low cloud, fog and drizzle in eastern Scotland, northeast England in particular, because of that very humid air coming in over the relatively cool seas at this time of the year, generates a lot of this low level mist and fog. And because the pattern hasn't changed for a number of days, it's stayed pretty like that really for quite some time now. So what is going on? Well, I mentioned convergence zones. They are key. If you want showers and thunderstorms, you usually need a mountain to get the air rising through the course of the day. And for parts of East Anglia, we don't really have much in the way of hills, so we rely much more heavily on things called convergence zones. And basically what they are is it's an area where the winds are coming together. So what we've got on this graphic here is just an idea of the streamlines of what the winds at low levels at the ground are doing across East Anglia. This is for Wednesday afternoon. It's a computer model simulation, if you like. Now, sea breezes develop obviously because of the temperature difference between the land and the sea. As the temperatures rise very quickly over the land, the difference between the temperature over the land and the sea gets greater, and so the breeze starts blowing from the sea into the land because obviously the air over the land starts to rise and that needs replacing from somewhere else. So you get sea breezes developing quite commonly in the summer months, and they come inland. But inland the winds may be blowing from a different direction to the way that the winds are coming in from the sea. And so where these two meet, they can't go down because obviously the ground's in the way, so the only way they can go is up. And so these convergence zones depicted on this graphic here with the darker reds and the brown colours, they are areas where there's a lot of wind convergence that then gets forced upwards, and this creates showers and thunderstorms. So this is sort of how it looks up close. If you look at it across the whole of the UK, you can see there's a whole manner of these little convergence zones dotted about all over the place, around hills, around the coast, inland as well. And these are all responsible primarily for generating these heavy showers and thunderstorms. And they shift a little bit through the day, but also between days as well. So the sea breeze may come in quicker on one day than the other. If there's more sunshine from the word go, then temperatures will rise quicker, and so the sea breeze may advance more inland, whereas if you start off rather grey and cloudy, temperatures may take a little bit longer to get going, and so the sea breeze may not come inland quite so far. So the position of these little zones shifts a little bit from day to day in the summer. But in general, they are the ones that are responsible for setting off these heavy showers and thunderstorms. But you can see how complex the whole thing is, given how many of these little zones there are right across the UK. And when you get a shower or thunderstorm that moves over these can actually develop some funnel clouds or even a weak tornado potentially, because there's a lot of spin involved when these winds are meeting each other at low levels. That then gets ingested up into the shower cloud as well. So lots of interesting little things going on here across parts of the UK over the next few days or so. Now the overall pattern in the upper atmosphere, the jet stream, we are basically stuck underneath what we call an upper trough. You can see that sort of dip in the jet stream somewhere over Western Europe. There's not a lot of jet activity. What that basically means is the air in the upper atmosphere is relatively cool, and of course it's sitting atop all this very warm, humid air that we've got at low levels, and that's the perfect combination to create some instability and therefore showers and thunderstorms. Not a great deal of wind aloft either, so these showers and storms are very slow moving, and they can last for quite some time and give a lot of rain over a small area, and can cause some local flooding as well. Too much rain in some places. Now later on this week, what we're going to find is the upper pattern starts to shift. Notice that jet coming out of Canada, and as we go towards the weekend, that really starts to get going and then sweeps in towards the UK. So we are going to change the weather type this weekend. Much more active jet coming in, deep area of low pressure, and with that there'll be some wind and rain, but no more of the heavy downpours, slow moving downpours that we'll see over the next few days. To give you an idea of how Wednesday is expected to play out, very similar to Tuesday. Again, this is the looking at the precipitation from one model. They're not always spot on, they do differ where they have the showers, but in general you can see the areas most at risk from these showers through the course of Wednesday. And you can see quite clearly it's southwest Scotland, northwest England, Wales, the Midlands, southern England. Quite a few places, but notice again the east coast, eastern Scotland, northeast England, into parts of eastern East Anglia, relatively dry, because again we'll have that sea breeze coming inland. That's bringing in cool air off the sea. That's not going to allow these showers to develop, but they will develop on the sea breeze convergence further inland. So another day of heavy, slow moving showers and thunderstorms quite widely across a good chunk of the UK. Now beyond that, things do start to subtly change before we get the major change towards the weekend. Now on Thursday, we've got this area of low pressure developing over the near continent. This starts to develop actually on Wednesday evening. So this is sort of the snapshot on Wednesday evening. Showers and storms across the UK, but also notice across much of mainland Europe. And the remnants of these showers and thunderstorms will develop into a more organised area of rain coming out of the continent into eastern England as we go through Wednesday night and into Thursday morning. So we're dealing with showers for the next couple of days, but there is a potential for a longer spell of rain on Wednesday night into Thursday across eastern parts of the UK initially, and then that will push westwards across perhaps northern England during Thursday, and perhaps also wrapping back round close to southwest England as well. There's a bit of uncertainty about the exact shape of this low and therefore exactly where these bands of rain will sit by the time we get to Thursday, but we are dealing with longer spells of rain as well as showers by Thursday. Right in the centre of that low, where the winds are very light, again we're going to have those convergence zones developing. So even if the rain is over northern England, central and southern parts, the Midlands, East Anglia, southern England, could still see some slow moving heavy thundery downpours on Thursday afternoon, but much of that will depend on the exact shape of this low by the time we get through to Thursday as to whether we see many showers and exactly where they may crop up. It's possible by Friday we could see more in the way of showery activity across eastern areas as the winds shift round to the southwest for a time, so that's something to bear in mind. And then for Saturday, brief ridge builds in, so actually a quieter day for many parts of the UK, especially in the east, before the next, and you can see big area of low pressure starts to come in on Saturday night. So already by this stage, midnight Saturday night, heavy rain pushing into western Britain, having crossed Ireland, and with that we'll have some pretty strong winds around as well. So a much more unsettled flavour to the weather and fresher conditions by the time we get through to the second half of the weekend. So quite a bit of weather going on. If you're trying to get some spraying done, this is a recap of how things were looking over the last 3 weeks or so. Zoe showed this graph last week, of course, as well. Half term for many, late May, that's the first bar on the left there, was a very good week for spraying. Very light winds across the UK, lots of sunshine around. So pretty much good conditions really, because it was very dry through the course of that week. We did see a dip in the potential spraying hours, and just to recap, this is the number of hours across the UK where it's dry and the winds are below 10 miles an hour. It also includes the overnight period as well, so if you can't spray at night, obviously this is possibly bigging up the number of hours you could have used, but it gives an idea across the UK averaged that it was more unsettled for that first week of June. Still a little bit on the mixed side for the second week of June, that's last week, but bouncing back up to 107. And this current week, it's really grab it where you can. The winds are fairly light, so good for spraying, but there are obviously these heavy downpours. Generally speaking, mornings are best because there are fewer showers by that stage in the day, and they develop gradually through the afternoon and evening hours as those temperatures rise. So there may well be some opportunity, especially if you're near the coast, because there'll be fewer showers here as well. But trying to pinpoint where those showers are is very, very difficult indeed, as you can see from the earlier maps of where all those convergence zones are, and they move about through the day as well. So if you want a bit more information on a localized scale, because the computer models are going to handle these showers in different ways, the best advice really is to give our forecasters a ring, and we're available every single day as always on our forecast hotline between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. Calls cost $1.55 a minute plus network access charges, and we'll try and answer all of your questions over the next few days and try and help you sort of pinpoint where these showers may crop up going over the next few days as well. So here's the pattern as we go through the course of next week. We're expecting a more unsettled flavour late this weekend, still quite breezy perhaps on Monday with the odd shower, but actually towards the middle of next week, high pressure starts to build in from the southwest, so things will actually settle down, we think, towards Tuesday, Wednesday of next week across the southeast. Still though, northwestern areas will be closer to that area of low pressure, so there's still the risk of a little bit of rain coming into Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, perhaps fringing into northwest England, that sort of thing during this time frame. But a drier picture a bit more widely, we think, through the middle part of next week. Now towards the end of next week, that high will probably nudge a bit further east towards Scandinavia, and we'll get a bit of a weakness developing between the Azores high to the southwest and this rather flabby high to the east of us as well, and that may perhaps bring the threat of some showers or thunderstorms back in for the second half of next week and into next weekend. Obviously a bit of uncertainty at this stage exactly how things will play out and how many showers and where they will happen, but potential is there to go back to this rather sort of showery, thundery type weather during the second half of next week. Something to keep an eye on. Now we've shown this table before. This is the chance of getting a dry day, looking at the next 4 weeks or so actually across a various selection of different counties in the UK, and you can quite clearly see if you want dry days you're looking for the brown colours, and if you want wet weather then you're looking for the green, and vice versa. So we're looking at a few days here between Tuesday and Thursday at least where green for many means there are the risk of showers and thunderstorms developing. That signal becomes weaker during the weekend, certainly Saturday looking like a slightly dry day overall, and then that rain band coming in from the west to give us some wetter weather perhaps on Sunday with a few blustery showers following on behind, and some strong winds as well, it has to be said. And then for the beginning of next week, there's that sign of the ridge building in, so Monday onwards, can't rule out the odd isolated shower, but generally speaking a lot of dry weather expected Monday through to at least the middle of the week. And then perhaps towards the end of next week, notice the brown colours start to decrease a bit. It gets a bit more mixed. There's no clear signal either way because obviously showers are difficult to pinpoint which county they're going to crop up in, but overall there's no strong signal for dry, which is what you'd be looking for if you wanted dry weather to continue. But equally there's no strong signal for a massively wet spell either, so it really is going to be potluck as to whether you get some showers during the second half of next week, but the risk will be increasing somewhat. And then from about the beginning of July onwards, it's a sort of typical pattern really for the time of the year by the looks of things, with the wettest conditions more often in the northwest of the UK. As you can see, the green colours there are primarily in western and northern parts of the UK, and the brown colours, the drier than normal conditions, more towards the south and east of the UK. So a bit of a northwest southeast split during the beginning of July by the looks of things at the moment. Now to give a little bit more detail for Cambridge, for example, I've picked here just to show you the temperature trend and the wind trends for the next 10 days. And quite clearly you can see the winds coming back up this weekend. It's going to be quite blustery on Sunday, possibly into Monday as well. As you can see, the purple colours there just creeping up a little bit, indicating some slightly stronger winds through the weekend, perhaps making it a bit difficult for spraying for a time as well. But then temperatures do start to come up, the winds come down as we go into next week, and it could actually be quite warm through the middle part of next week. We could quite easily be in the high 20s and, dare I say it, possibly scraping into the low 30s, depending on how long this lasts for, how much sunshine there is and so forth. But some of the ensemble members here are above 30 degrees for Cambridge, as an example. So there is potential for some quite warm, if not hot conditions for a time during the middle of next week, but that in turn then could probably set off some thundery bursts of rain, some downpours later on in the week as well. So across Europe, this is how things are looking. High pressure, generally speaking, across much of northern and eastern Europe and towards the south, which you can see that hint of a weakness where the UK is. We're sort of in between the two areas of high pressure during next week. It is going to be warmer than average, if not hot at times as well across the UK, but indeed much of Europe here in the red colours, above average temperatures, below average temperatures across southern and southeastern parts of Europe. And here it's likely to be quite showery with some showers and thunderstorms on many days next week across the south and southeast, with above average rainfall. Across the UK, rainfall will vary considerably from one location to another. Again, near the coast it may be relatively dry. Inland there'll be some heavy downpours and some thunderstorms, but very localised in terms of how much rain you may get from this type of pattern. Now, as we go through late June into early July, at the moment there are signs that it may be slightly lower than average pressure across the UK. Perhaps not in a massive way, but temperatures probably near or just slightly above normal, so nothing too chilly showing up at the moment, and rainfall near or even below normal across northern and eastern parts of the UK. But notice southern areas just coming up with that higher than average rainfall, just indicating the threat of that ongoing risk of some showers and thunderstorms perhaps developing at times, and more widely across the nearby continent as well, away from Iberia, where it is likely to be pretty dry. And really not a great deal of change through the second week of July. It's more of the same really, slightly lower than average pressure, temperatures sort of near normal for the time of the year, nothing too exciting showing up at this stage. And rainfall, if anything, maybe something a little bit drier for this spell perhaps, but still I think there will be that ongoing threat of a few thundery downpours, but still some lengthy dry spells in between. So it doesn't look like we're going to go into anything massively unsettled away from the northwest. But equally nothing prolonged dry, still the odd sort of thundery day where we could see some heavy downpours developing from time to time. So just to summarise all of that stuff we've been talking about, scattered showers and thunderstorms through the rest of this week, more unsettled for a time over the weekend with a band of rain coming in and some pretty strong winds, especially on Sunday, and then becoming a bit drier early to the middle part of next week as that high pressure builds in more widely, very warm, especially in the south, and then perhaps just a return to some thundery downpours later next week just to end the month, and then we'll have that sort of northwest southeast pattern going on through into the beginning of July as well. So more thundery downpours to come, more much needed rain for some, perhaps too much for others. If you've got any questions or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. You can contact us through our usual social media channels, and of course we'll be back next week with another Weatherquest farming forecast. Bye for now.